Well, for more on this, let's speak to Calvin Dark. He's the president at CD Global Strategies, which is an international consulting firm. He's live from Washington. Thank you very much for your time. So, the Russian foreign minister is accusing the U.S. of undermining world order. Would you agree or disagree with him?
Well, I believe that if it's allowed to continue as it was proposed by President Trump this week, it could upend the world order. But I think what the Russian foreign minister and many foreign ministers and representatives that I've seen this week, they're trying to figure out how do they do this dance. Obviously, they don't want to upend the world order, but they also have to figure out a way to work with the United States that's doing things that we haven't done before or haven't done in decades.
What we saw this week at the UN was the U.S. basically pulling away from the international system and its traditional allies, such as the UK and France, siding with Russia, which is unheard of, and China against the US, particularly on the issue of Iran's nuclear deal. Does all of this matter at all to President Trump, that his traditional allies, like the UK and France, are siding with the US as traditional enemies?
I think he being President Trump, he likes this because you got to remember, he campaigned on the fact that he believed the United States was, as he said, a laughingstock, which I think it's interesting, the incident with laughing that happened with him at the UN. So when our traditional allies are not comfortable, he feels that he's shaking things up like he planned. Now, in some areas, yes, I think we can shake things up and change things. But I think as an American, it was kind of unfortunate because he confused sovereignty with isolationism, which is not the way to go, especially, as you said, with Iran and dealing with Russia and North Korea. We're going to need international cooperation to even remotely have a chance of being successful.
Do you think this is, just a temporary blip, or are we really witnessing a change in the world order, the beginning of a new world order that's going to be lasting?
Well, I do think it's a blip that if the proper course corrections are made, it won't be long term. First of all, I think that the way the United States has established itself in the world and the framework that's set up can't be undone by one U.S. president in one first term. However, if things continue and if the world leaders and allies, as you mentioned, go at their own way without the U.S. because they don't have the U.S.'s partnerships, then we could see down the road that things are not going to be as together as we've experienced them here in the U.S. But we're going to see our traditional allies going in on their own because they don't have any other choice. Do
you think the damage can be undone once President Trump leaves office? Is it just about him?
No, I think for the moment it's just about him, and I do think in some areas, like our stance with refugees and our participation with humanitarian causes and with North Korea, that's going to have lasting effects because these are very big steps, hopefully in the right direction, but in some cases they aren't going in the right direction. But I don't think that anything that President Trump is doing now is going to be undoable, either by him if he changes course or by the next U.S. president.
Speaking of humanitarian issues, President Trump hasn't really shown much interest towards Africa. So what do you make of the First Lady Melania's planned trip to Africa? What does that suggest about the way his administration is going about this?
Well, my thinking behind the countries that were chosen, Egypt, Ghana, Malawi, and Kenya, my thinking is twofold. One is President Trump has shown that when he has what he perceives as a good personal relationship with world leaders, then he likes them. And that's the case with President Kenyatta in Kenya and with Sisi in Egypt. Two, USAID has programs in these countries, so you're putting the First Lady into a situation where there's at least the beginning of a success story. And it ties in with her Be Best campaign for children. So I think there's a lot of potential. The problem is what is going to be done here in the United States, or what is the president going to tweet or say that might overshadow any good work and goodwill Melania Trump could give when she starts next week on her first Africa solo trip.
Thank you very much for speaking to us. Nice to hear your views on this. Calvin Dark joining us from Washington, D.C.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.